Visit MMAPowerHour.com for your most downloaded mixed martial arts news and podcasts. This is Bowkes Talking Bouts, an MMA Power Hour podcast where Dylan Bouker brings you the #1 pod that keeps you up to speed with MMA fighters from across all fight promotions.
All right, on this episode of Bowkes Talking Bouts, happy to be talking to an individual coming off of a big win. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of that, make sure you subscribe to Bowkes Talking Bouts. You can listen in on whatever your preferred platform is. But talking to an individual coming off of a big victory at ONE Dangal, getting that victory via unanimous decision. I'm talking to Gurdarshan Mangat. How's your day going so far there, man?
It's going good, man. Just working out. Just Saturday morning. Doing my thing.
No, that's awesome, and just an interesting dynamic in your last fight there, just getting the unanimous decision victory and getting into the one circle with Roshan Mainam, and just, you know, just someone you have a bit of a backstory with there and everything like that, like a guy you have a bit of a level of kinship with. You've mentored him in the past. Like, how curious was that kind of dynamic there, just getting out and competing with someone you have that kinship with in the one circle?
Yeah, that was a completely different situation because when I arrived in Singapore, that wasn't what I was expecting. I was training for somebody completely different, and not only have an opponent change from the time that I landed in Singapore, end up fighting somebody that I've mentored and actually somebody that I spoke to one championship to get him into one championship, somebody that I've even commentated the fights of, and I'm literally saying on the commentary that this kid could be the future of Indian MMA. And the opportunity was presented to them. They took it, and I had to show up. And I was already in Singapore. I was already sitting there, so I wasn't going to come home empty-handed. I had already done the training camp, and it was a strange situation to be in because it was an India kind of catered card and two Indian fighters. I didn't really want that situation, but it is what it is. Whoever the man is across from me, it's who I got to beat, and he happened to be that guy.
Well, it seems like you both handled it very professionally. Like, even in the post-fight interactions, it seemed like there was that, you know, mutual respect kind of dynamic and everything. So, I mean, yeah, less than ideal situation, but you both seem to treat it with, you know, an appropriate level of professionalism.
Yeah, of course. Like, at the end of the day, it's just two warriors going at it. I respect him for grabbing the opportunity when it was presented to him. He's 25. I wasn't even where he was when I was 25 to be fighting in one championship, and then just to be fighting at that kind of level. Props to him for even taking the opportunity. And I didn't want him to get too down on himself with that whole thing. I've been on the other end, and I know what it feels like. So, like, you know, you win and lose, and I just didn't want it to kind of deteriorate him from his goals. I came in well prepared. I came in to make a statement. It didn't matter who it was, whether it was him or not, and I was going to do what I had to do, and whoever was going to be across from me was going to get outclassed, and I knew that going into it.
And just such a great event, you know, ONE Dangal, having that, you know, inspiring, you know, motivating dynamic to it. Seemed like a pretty well thought out cultural kind of event. I'm curious from your perspective though, like, how did you think the promotion handled some of those aspects of the show presentation?
I thought it was amazing. I actually had no idea that it was going to be called that until the poster came out, so I had no idea. When I heard that, I thought that was really cool, even the poster colors and stuff like that. I thought there was going to be a couple of us on the card and then just kind of, like, you know, mix it in with everything else. I didn't know it was going to be a fully catered card to the Indian audience, and that was really cool. That's the first of its kind in any major promotion for Indian MMA, so that was huge, and that's just the beginning. And I know this card would have been in India had all the COVID restrictions not been in place and the whole situation. So I'm hoping the next one that they do something like this, we do it in India.
Yeah, I hope the same thing. That would be an amazing show, but I kind of wanted to touch on that aspect of it there, because it seemed like with the Indian fighters on the card, there was that desire to want to, like, really show out and give, like, that, you know, a bit of like a cathartic kind of like glimmer of hope moment almost, just because of the COVID-19 surge over there in India. Like, how did it feel in that kind of sense to be able to just, I guess, provide that, you know, brief moment of positivity and reprieve for, you know, people in India during a difficult time?
For me, that was the whole reason I came back. I was sitting pretty comfortably. I was like, you know what? Why would I want to risk training for a fight during these times and having to go away from my family for 3 months because of COVID restrictions. I wasn't able to travel back and forth. Usually I can come home and kind of see my family. So all these things were things that I had to think about before taking this fight. There's a lot of people around me that weren't too about it, but they were supportive if I wanted to go ahead with it, just because of the situations that were taking place. COVID has hit pretty home to us. We've lost people that were in our family and stuff like that. And there's been situations where we've had family overseas and get stuck over there because of restrictions, and it's been a pretty anxious-filled time, if it isn't really already for everybody else. But I still had this thing where I wanted to give some sort of hope, even if it's through sports or whatever. But then also ultimately using the platform to voice the situations that are happening in India. That's something that, because honestly in my heart, I knew that the only reason I would be coming back is to be some sort of voice. At the end of the day, it's not wins and losses are going to come, but what you can do for your people if you're truly representing them, that's where I stand with it. And I learned these things from Donald Cerrone and stuff like that, who's basically hasn't won a belt, but he is basically the people's champ if you think about it. And I want to be there for the people for the time that I have this stage and this platform to be able to be a voice for them. And that was really important for me. That was my driving motivation for getting through the weeks that I did, getting through the struggles and the situations I faced during this training camp, was ultimately who I would be representing in the end.
Well, I just love that it culminated into, the result that we all got to see there, just with all the factors that you outlined considered there. But, just with this one being a pre-recorded event, I'm kind of curious just on the level of, your individual performance and stuff like that. I imagine you want to, tell people about it a bit. Like, was it kind of a bummer having to be coy a little bit and kind of be tight-lipped about it for a little while?
I personally liked it. For myself, I'm a pretty introvert person. So what usually happens is after a victory, it becomes very overwhelming. You're getting everything from every kind of social media, interviews, everything like that. So this time I got to kind of warm up for it. And is the reason I'm doing so many interviews, because I got kind of that break in between. The only people that I really knew was my wife and basically the people that are living in the house with me. I even kept it from my friends. Because the reason that I fight is to give that moment to people close to me and people far from me. And if I told them that this is what happened, then what's the excitement in it? The reason we tune in for a fight, we don't watch it pre-recorded, we tune into a pay-per-view, we tune into a live event, is because we don't know what can happen. We don't want to watch it later on. We want to watch it as it's happening. And that's kind of the beauty of sports. So it was kind of a weird situation because it didn't really hit me till it aired, which is kind of weird. I was sitting there watching, I'm like, I forgot that it was me on the screen. And I was trying to do everything that I probably can never do again, because it's never in my career has there been a pre-recorded event that I've been part of. So I was eating Wendy's, I was doing things, I wanted to do things that I will never be able to do on a fight day. I was eating Wendy's, I was hanging out with my wife, which is something I never do on fight day. I was I just wanted to make it different since it was different. But yeah, being quiet about it, it wasn't tough for me. It was just I have friends that kind of suspected it, so they were really trying to figure out if I was home or not. And I was literally laying really DL for a week or so, a week and a half. And they were even sending me location, where they can see what locations they are. They were sending me invites for that. So they're really trying to figure it out. But today, I'm going to spend it with my family, and we're going to celebrate it a bit today. And it's been nice. I've actually enjoyed it.
So are we maybe looking at getting a pre-recorded fight dynamic in the fight contract there? Like, all these got to be pre-recorded. Is that something you're looking at?
I don't mind it. I really don't mind it. It makes you live the moment a bit longer than it is. The weird thing about a fight is that you visualize it for so long, you train for it, you go and do it, and then it's just kind of done. And it never is what you ever imagined it was going to be when you were kind of imagining it and visualizing it. And the moment just kind of goes, and it's just kind of like, then 4 or 5 days, like everything's kind of just back to normal, and you're just kind of, now you're looking for that next high, you're kind of looking for that next fight. This one's kind of been stretched out longer, because I had a week and a half with my wife. I came home, and I got to just kind of enjoy my new house, and nobody really knew I was home. I wasn't doing really any interviews and stuff. Then the fight aired. Then that whole media storm kind of took off. And now we're kind of in that phase. And now today, I get to kind of celebrate it with my family. So it's been kind of stretched over 2.5 weeks. So I got to kind of live it more and enjoy it more than it all just kind of happening really quick, which is what usually always happens.
Yeah, I guess the volume of attention is a little bit of something that maybe takes you aback, just, with the backstory and everything of being kind of like a bit of a shyer kid and just all the different experiences you have. I mean, I guess it's probably like a strange sort of thing to kind of, deal with all of that, like maybe a little bit overwhelming per se, like you talk about the introvert dynamic.
Yeah. It's like, like people think that I'm very much out there because I do, like, I speak out there and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I'm still like, I love just being home. I love just being in my own little bubble. And that's why I think MMA is that's why I enjoyed the whole isolation process even. There was a lot of fighters that were losing their mind when so I created my own little world that I was kind of just living in. That's what I like to do. I even do that at home. And, it's my wife that's the more outgoing one. She's the one that pulls me out of that.
Played a pretty key role in you going on the ONE championship path there.
So Mighty Mouse, I think it was getting ready. Well, that time I was still going down to AMC. He was getting ready for a second rematch with Henry Cejudo at the time. I'd been part of Mighty Mouse's camp since the Horiguchi camp. And I was really trying to figure out which way I wanted to go. I'd been called on a couple short notices by the UFC, like literally a day before. But there was no way I could make 125. And then it was just getting to a point where I was like, Matt Hume spoke to me. He's like, this is what we're going to do. This is how big it's going to get. And I was just kind of at a point where I knew I wasn't somebody that kind of fakes drama and stuff. So maybe the UFC wasn't going to work so well. And then ONE Championship kind of appreciated just what I represented, the martial arts background. Then literally right after, once I made that decision, 3 weeks later, the decision of TNT signing a TV deal, then Demetrious coming over, then Eddie coming over, then Sage coming over, and it just got a crazy storm of it. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm in the right spot. And then the flyweight class just got crazy attention because it technically is the strongest weight class in ONE Championship. And I was like, okay, I guess this is where I got to be. This is the place. So it just reaffirmed that decision that I made right before Demetrious had made, that this is where I need to be. And like we know how UFC at that time was appreciating the flyweight class. They weren't really appreciating it. They were always talking about getting rid of it, and where ONE Championship was more so about growing it, and the Asian market loves the smaller weight classes. So just that whole appreciation factor. And there was a couple other negotiations that went down that I really liked, and I just felt more appreciated by ONE Championship, and just seemed like the good way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioning the flyweight class a couple times there. I was noticing the last one was a catchweight kind of situation. Was that just like a brief, I guess, pandemic-minded sort of thing? And maybe if certain things affecting the weight cut there? Like, I guess what I'm asking is, like, the long-term future still at flyweight, you're thinking?
Yeah, so the reason that happened is, once again, is because most people think Roshan was my original opponent. He wasn't. When I landed in Singapore, I was already at flyweight. I was on way to weigh in against my other opponent. And it's when I got there that this whole situation fell through. And Roshan was much heavier, and there's no way he could get down to flyweight within the time that he had. So that's why we had to meet at a catchweight. It had nothing to do with me. I am a flyweight. I will be fighting a flyweight. It was more to cater to him, whether he could make that and whether the fight was going to happen. If I didn't agree to that, the fight probably wasn't going to happen. So that was what that situation was. That's why it was made into a catchweight. It had nothing to do with me, really.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured, but just thought to, pause at the question and get the clarification in case anyone was, looking at your Tapology page and being like, oh, what's going on here?
Yeah, exactly. So it had nothing to do with me. I am a flyweight. I will be fighting at flyweight.
But yeah, we've been talking about some of the, cool opportunities that being part of ONE Championship has afforded you there. Like, I think it's so cool, the story you have with, Vitor Belfort, and how that was just a conversation that was like a quarter century in the making, and just how much of an inspiration he was to you. So can you kind of talk about that dynamic a little bit? Because I think that's amazing.
Yeah, that was a crazy situation. Vitor is somebody that has a huge part of my life since I was, 8 Well, actually, from the original UFCs, that's where I first saw him, and I didn't really know what a Brazilian fighter was. I just assumed he was an Indian fighter, just because I didn't even know what a Brazilian was at that time. And I used to say to my dad, I'm like, how do I look like this guy? He's like, you drink 3 glasses of milk every night and you do 10 push-ups. And the other guy that every Indian father wanted to be was Tank Abbott, and I didn't want to look like Tank Abbott, if you remember him.
Yeah.
So every dad wanted to be Tank, and every young kid coming up wanted to be Vitor, because Vitor was just the animal. And somebody I used to watch the UFC with a lot was my cousin. Now, my cousin he was suffering from depression and stuff like that, and a lot of traumatic stuff. And he committed suicide when I was in grade 8. And almost every time I was watching Vitor, it would always remind me of him. So I literally just walked away from watching MMA or anything. And that was it. And then when I was 20, 21, and I got into MMA, Vitor happened to be he seems to be coming back onto the scene. He was over in Japan, I believe. But then Affliction, if you remember Affliction promotion.
Oh, yeah.
He came back for that, and where he fought Matt Lindland. And at that same time, then he started coming back to the UFC, and I just won my first belt. And it was just this weird thing. And then at that time, I was holding a lot of hate. I was holding a lot of anger with the whole situation and everything that had happened with my cousin. And Vitor dropped a video said that I am second. And that's I am second video I used to watch every single day. And that video was about him basically coming to terms and give forgiveness about his sister who was kidnapped. And I believe they still have never found her. And she was kidnapped in Brazil. And just this anger that he built towards everybody, and rightfully so, and just being able to forgive that because of Christianity that he found. And that video was literally like the medicine for me. I used to watch it all the time, and then that was the reason I wanted to meet Vitor, because he basically saved my life, I would say, from a really shitty kind of mindset that I would have taken on had I not come across that. And then we would just kind of keep missing each other. He went to Montreal to train. I missed him by 2 days. I missed him in a lot of different spots. I even went to his fight when he fought John Jones in Toronto, and I was trying to figure out a way to meet him, and it didn't work out. And just years and years and years passed by. And then he signed a ONE championship, and I remember taking the flight I'd been flown into Japan after my ONE championship debut, and I was geeking out on the plane. I would just visualize, I'm saying to my wife, I'm like, what if I meet him? Like, what if this happens? Holy crap, he's probably going to be there. And the moment presented itself. And once the moment presented itself, I basically lost my mind. It was like a kid, in a candy store. And being a kid in a candy store, it was just like, holy crap, it all just came together. I told him the story. And once I told him the story, he couldn't believe that his words had done what it had done. And from there, where he's like, we need to get this message out. And so we went to Thailand for a Thailand ONE championship retreat where they had select fighters come in. And he's like, we need to tell this story. He's like, who knows how your pain can be medicine for somebody else, just like my pain was medicine for you. So that's where we kind of came together. And yeah, we still keep in touch. And it's just crazy how the world comes full circle. And you can still see that video. It's still on YouTube and stuff like that. And just being next to the Phenom and having this moment, it was nuts. I still, when I think about it, I still can't believe it was real.
Yeah, and it seemed like, the inspiration went even beyond MMA, just like a, redirect the life path sort of thing. But it seems like Rich Franklin was very key in, kind of like turning you on to the idea of mixed martial arts. Just this dynamic where the guy, is a teacher, he has this level of intellect, but then he's also partaking in mixed martial arts. So, that must be a cool dynamic too, just with Rich Franklin being, such a, key tied in part to ONE championship there.
Yeah, it's just weird how everything comes together, everything comes back full circle. So with Rich Franklin, I was still in accounting at the time, and it was actually his fight when he was fighting for the middleweight title against Anderson Silva, that they were doing a background, they were explaining who he was and saying that he was a teacher. And this whole time I had this belief that every fighter we were watching were born and bred to be what they were. They weren't holding regular 9-to-5 jobs and then fighting for middleweight titles on the weekend. And that was the kind of the light bulb, was hearing that story of Rich Franklin. And then at the same time, there was somebody from Vancouver that was fighting on the card. I'm like, oh shit, there's a gym right here somewhere too. So Rich Franklin was kind of that light, and yeah, now he's part of ONE Championship. So I wasn't able to meet him again. He commentated my fight, but because of the COVID restrictions and the bubble they were in, so the commentators were up in the bleachers, commentating from there, and then we were kept in a separate thing. So it was Singapore and ONE Championship had a very crazy kind of thing. Even though we were in the same arena, we still weren't allowed to cross paths because of COVID restrictions, because of the bubble he was in and the bubble that I was in. So he did commentate my fight, but I still have yet to meet him and basically thank him.
Well, that's wild. I didn't even know there was like compartmentalized bubbles within the bubble itself.
Crazy, it was crazy. The whole situation with how they pulled it off from the second you step off the plane to how you get to the hotel, and just the testing and the amount of testing, and just how you get taken to the arena, how you warm up for it. Everything was different. Everything, like nothing was the same as what it was from before. Just nobody, like there's nobody in the arena. Even the fighter, you're the only fight in there. Then they bring the next fighter in there to warm up. And it was just a weird, crazy situation being in a 18,000 person indoor stadium and there's like literally 10 people in there.
Yeah, a wild dynamic, all things considered. But I'm kind of wondering, with Vitor and Rich Franklin being some of the big fighters for you early on, were you a bit conflicted when they fought each other in UFC back in the day? Like were you torn kind of there? Or what was the dynamic with that?
No, not really. I was kind of...
Whoever wins, I'm happy kind of thing, right?
Yeah, for Rich Franklin, he served a different dynamic, and Vitor served... Obviously, Vitor was one of my favorite MMA fighters of all time and still is. But just the life, just how he was part of my life, and that I was able to tell him. He wasn't so much the inspiration for MMA, that would be Rich, but more so my life altogether and the way that I was thinking, the way I was approaching things, and the things I'd gone through and the things that I dealt with, and then him speaking the way he did with what he dealt with. So he kind of, it didn't really matter if it was MMA or not. It was kind of just rearranging and letting me know that it was okay to let go of this anger, and it was only, your life is only going to get better if you let go of this. And he served as that. He's basically, because of that, it's changed my life altogether, not just my mixed martial arts career, but just how I am in life in general.
Yeah, it seems like it provided great lessons and just, the ability to, kind of overcome a lot in your life and stuff like that. It seems like MMA is a vehicle for that too, just overcoming certain trials and tribulations and everything. It seems like it's been a long road since the, pancreation tournaments at the local college in the basketball shorts.
Yeah, that's where I started.
Yeah, I love that.
That's where I started. That's where people are always like, there's a lot of people that are new fans and never going to know just where this all started. And just the road it took, I sometimes I think that I was somehow, handed something to make it a ONE Championship. I've paid a lot of dues, and the thing is, I came up from accounting and MMA, so that's all I had. That's all I had to build from. It's one thing if you came up in some sort of martial arts, so you kind of have the mindset developed, and then you transition. I developed from basically a life reset at the age of 22, and that was it. Just a life reset in every way possible, from friend dynamics to how I approach society to how I looked at life to dedicating myself to something that's scary as hell, to literally walking away from a very comfortable path to probably the most uncomfortable path you can take, and just sticking to it through all these years and to see where this all goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were talking about earlier training at AMC in the past. I'm kind of wondering, because also the fight aggregators online list you as training at a Revolution fight team as well. Just with the pandemic going on, are you mostly just getting in that work at, Revolution and stuff like that, just, minimizing travel and whatnot? Like, what's the core gym as of late?
Yeah, so Revolution, when I'm back home in Vancouver, that's where I'm at with Bibiano Fernandez. AMC is really not an option because once you cross the border and come back to Canada, you're under 14 days.
Yeah.
So anything in the U.S. is basically off limits. And most of the gyms here are kind of shut down too. They're very kind of closed off because the rules are a bit different. In BC still, since I've been home, it's been weird. But I'm getting work in with Bibiano and the guys over there at Revolution for now. and just this is what I do. When I'm home, I'm trying to help whoever has fights coming up, whoever has stuff coming up, and we just kind of keep maintaining it until the next chapter starts evolving itself.
Yeah, for sure. And, elite level work, getting in work with a guy like Bibiano. But I'm kind of wondering, when you're in the gym, like if there's certain, genres of music you're partial to train to. Like, are you a guy that's jamming tunes, or you kind of just letting whoever grab the aux cord and get to it? Like, I know you had that Young Jeezy and R. Kelly song for your debut fight intro song. Like, is it stuff like that you're jamming in the gym, or are you just letting other people grab the aux and play whatever?
You actually remember that from my outro? That's crazy, man. That's actually pretty dope. Yeah, that's so weird how all that stuff aged and the way everything aged.
Yeah, right.
For myself personally, I used to be a big hip hop fan. I'm not gonna say that I'm still like I still am, Drake and stuff and all that stuff. I'll make playlists and stuff like that. I've gone heavier into EDM music, and it's because of my coach in Las Vegas, Eddie Baracco, who's also you probably saw him on Ultimate Fighter and stuff, and he's somebody that I work with a lot. And when we go out to Vegas, we go out to the nightclubs, we go to XS and stuff, so it's more like chain smokers and RL Grimes and stuff like that, those kind. And I noticed my mood and stuff was better. I noticed I was thinking better. Even when I'm trading, I have Tomorrowland playing always. I just feel like my mind goes to a different frequency, and I'm starting to become more aware of these kind of things, where I notice that mainstream music or mainstream rap or something kind of, I think it's almost meant to kind of slow you down a bit, where I feel like EDM and almost stuff that's unreleased. I always like to find underground EDM or house music or something like that. And I notice I function at a better mood, a better pace, and my mind works sharper. So I've become much more aware of that. So I try to play stuff like that. That can be anything from David Guetta, anything Tomorrowland related, Dimitri Vegas, old school Swedish House Mafia, Zoo. A lot of people have no idea who Zoo is, ZHU. That guy's music is basically what The Weeknd was to me when he was still in the mixtape era before he went mainstream.
Oh, yeah.
Zoo is amazing. Every training session in the hotel in Singapore was to Zoo vibes, and just it's just a different vibe for me. I just feel different when I'm training and stuff. So I'm very aware of those things. I've become very aware of what I'm digesting, I guess, not just food, but mentally and hearing and seeing and stuff like that. And I'm trying to be very well aware of what I'm seeing around me and stuff like that, and music is a big part of that. So I'm much more careful with it. I'm not saying I don't listen to rap. I'm not saying I don't listen to hip hop. I listen to almost every type of music. It's just when I'm trying to reach a different level, I have to be very aware of what kind of basically vibrations, I guess you can say, that I'm taking in. And EDM seems to be the place where I seem to be at a higher place.
Yeah, I get what you're laying down, for sure. Definitely a thoughtful, analytical thing you're laying down there. But you've also been really great with your time, and I want to be mindful of that too, with all the media you're getting now and stuff like that. So is there anything you'd like to add as a parting thought as we're wrapping up here, man?
Just want to say thanks to everybody. Thanks to all the media. Thanks to everybody. And just hope you guys are enjoying the journey. And anybody that's new to the Team St. Latin train, I guess, I've been here for a minute. A lot of people had no idea. I've been here for a minute. A lot of Indian fans, a lot of people just kind of found me lately when I got to ONE Championship. And I've been at this long before Indian MMA was even a conversation, and I will continue to be here and just hoping to keep breaking barriers for everybody and hoping you guys are enjoying the story that's unfolding.
Yeah, definitely a fun journey to follow along with, and everything like that, and just getting the great victory at ONE Dangal, and just really excited to see what the next step is for you, man, and just really appreciate you coming on the show there, Gurdarshan, and just you enjoy the rest of your day. And yeah, like I said, to reiterate, just looking forward to seeing what's next. Thanks for coming on the show and making time.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.